All right. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. It's Friday. It's Firearms Friday. It is the first Firearms Friday of the week. Well, that didn't start off real good, did it? Sorry, I'm still fighting that little bit of a cold. But let's that's not great. All right. Guys, I am so sorry. I was fine right up until I hit the frickin' right up until I hit the Here, I'm gonna throw you guys one of the songs for a minute and get myself back under control.
Oh, the pilgrims weren't naive, no fairy tales or fantasies. They knew they'd meet a wilderness that wanted them all dead. They carried carpenters and farmers, muskets, axes, winter armor, realist with grim resolve and Bible verses in their head. No talk of where's the charger, no shock at no hot water. They expected cold and hunger like a bill that must be paid. Not helpless, they were hardened, every hardship well discerned, and every risk accounted in the plans they soberly laid. Oh, the grit those souls were steeled in, every hardship pre-revealed, and still they crossed an ocean knowing half of them might fall. A courage carved in timber without tech to babysit them, and that's the part that truly shocks the modern weaklings most of all. And now the gadget glutted, battery besotted, would perish in an hour if the Wi-Fi ever rotted. Lose the power, lose the grid, gone immediate feral kid. Your ancestors built a nation, you can't find your car without your bid. We're the hyper-connected, algorithmically protected, needing apps to tell us when to drink or stretch or sigh. Try to run off to the woods, you'd starve between the neighborhoods. You'd die before your DoorDash brought your moral support stir fry. We're the neo-needy nomads of the nexus, interconnected, a species so dependent even Google keeps receipts. Our wilderness survival is just for our revival, and half of us can't function if the thermostat misbehaves a beat. Where pilgrims fell their timber, we collapse when service hinders. If the latte's made incorrectly, civilization weeps. We call ourselves advanced, but unplug us once and that's it. Society unravels in a disappointingly short sweep. But progress is a spiral and the gears turn ever higher, from muskets to machinery to microchips and fire. And just as we mock yesteryear for being backward pioneers, future folks will laugh at us the way we laugh at wooden tires. Imagine shiny robot people, post-laboratory peaceful, skipping through abundance like they're brunching every day. They'll study us with bafflement at how we work for government and think our whole economy was little more than cosplay. We'll seem like quaint Victorians amid their grand historians, a clumsy age of fossil fuels and phones that sometimes froze. They'll treat our smartphones like antiques, our industries like diaper leaks. Oh look, they thought that was the future, precious mortals, heaven knows. Oh, picture it, a world rebuilt without the grind, without the guilt. Robotic serfs and AI saints doing all the heavy load. No wages, bosses, labor fears, just long and languid golden years, where humans spend existence writing poems, eating scones. From up on that abundance peak, they'll study us confused and meek and wonder why we clung so tight to toil and tangled stress. We built machines that built machines but kept on working by what means. Our era will look primitive as tents made out of canvas. So raise your mugs and gear-born grins, you clockwork-hearted hooligans, for every age looks foolish to the ones who rise above. From pilgrim huts to server stacks to robo-utopian syntax, we're just the middle chapter in a saga forged in love. And one day folks of circuits bright will laugh at how we saw the light and say, imagine thinking that was progress. Ba-da-da!
All right. I hope you guys enjoyed that for a minute while I collected myself. that was awful. I got the show started and just couldn't stop coughing for a minute there. Oh, okay. But, you know, 'tis the season. All right, back to it. Happy New Year. It's Firearms Friday. And this morning, I've got a DGU or two that we can take a look at. But first, I want to talk about this Supreme Court case. Now, we've already discussed this case in some detail. This is the Wolford versus Lopez, I believe, is the case. But basically, the case is being brought before the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court decided to hear the case on a challenge to Hawaii law. Now, this law is especially interesting because there are several states like California, New York, New Jersey, your usual suspects, the ones with the greatest metastasized blue cancers where Democrats abound, that are instituting similar laws. Essentially, what the law says is that all places, all private properties that are open to the public, basically every business, is a gun-free zone unless the private property owner posts a sign to the contrary. Now, the way it works, the way it has worked traditionally, historically, and this is an important factor vis-a-vis the Bruen decision, is that you have the right to keep and bear arms. And that right shall not be infringed. As I say often on the show, right? To infringe doesn't mean to impede or to obstruct. It means to place something thereto adjacent. Right? It is not merely the case that a law which says you can't have a gun is an infringement of the right to keep and bear arms. A law that says you cannot have a gun unless is also an infringement. In fact, a law that says your gun must shoot metal bullets would also be an infringement. If I want to carry a crossbow, for example, that doesn't have to shoot a metal bullet, that can shoot a wooden bolt. It is still an arm. Right? You'll note the Second Amendment does not say the right to keep and bear firearms. It says the right to keep and bear arms. Right? That's firearms. That's bows. That's a knife. That's a sword. That's an axe. What have you? Whatever arms you wish to carry to use in joined combat, in lawful self-defense, or in the lawful suppression of tyranny. Right? I mean, Pitt Danny says crayons. Yeah. You got Aaron Olson. Pitt Danny is a Marine. He's talking about packing rations because the Army marches on its bellies. Right? Some of us pack beans. Some of us pack Crayola. So what the Hawaii law, and like I said, a similar law that was passed immediately after Bruen in states like California, New York, New Jersey, etc., says that basically it presupposes that if a business, that if there is a business and you enter the business and the business does not have a sign posted that explicitly says we allow permitted carry, then you have just committed a crime. Now, the nation over, the way it works is if a business wants to have specific rules, then whether or not the business allows you to carry firearms on its private property is roughly akin to it having a dress code, right? You can have a high class restaurant that says we have a dress code. You must be in shirt and tie. You must be in a 3-piece suit, etc., in order to be served at this establishment. Right? No shirt, no shoes, no service. Another, that's the classic example. And if you enter the building in violation of the established code of conduct, dress code, rules of the building, then you can be asked to leave. right? That's actually not dissimilar to something like a daycare, which has, of course, been a big ticket item in the news lately. If a daycare says you must either be an employee or a child in the care of the center, or the parent of a child who is already in the care of the center, or the parent of a child who is in the process of applying to be in the care of the child care center, and no one else may enter the facility, right? And a lot of those will have a locked door, etc. But you can establish rules for your private business where you say you're not welcome here if you do not comply with the rules. And the way that works for private property is if the property owner says you're not welcome, then you're trespassing, right? Once you have been informed by posted notice, right? So if there's a sign on the wall that says no guns and you're carrying a gun and you enter the property, you're trespassing because you have chosen to enter the property in violation of the code of conduct of that property. Personally, to the greatest extent possible, I do not do business with businesses that post gun-free zone flags on their doors. There are a few exceptions to this where I just wear my gun and I keep it concealed and just go about my business, and nobody knows, nobody's offended. And if anybody were to ever find out that I were armed, they would be thankful for the prospect, because the only way that anybody would ever know is if I suddenly had to use that firearm in defense of those people. One apparent exception is to the 7-Elevens, because as we covered a few weeks ago in a DGU, a young lady who was working at a 7-Eleven chose to kill the enemy instead of dying when her store was robbed while she was working, and 7-Eleven fired her. So fuck those guys all the way to Tuesday and back. But what the Hawaii, New York, California, and New Jersey law says is that by default, you are trespassing if you are lawfully armed. You are trespassing in any private business that does not post a sign that explicitly permits you to carry the firearm. Now, the argument that is being made in the lawsuit against and is being made before the Supreme Court to overturn these laws is, and correctly, this is not just their opinion. This is the truth. That the intent of these laws is to do an end run around the Constitution and say, well, we're not telling people they can't carry firearms. We're just telling them that they can't carry that firearm anywhere. We're just deciding that, well, it's perfectly legal for you to keep and bear arms. You're not allowed to keep and bear arms in any of these places. Oh, well, what are these places? Oh, it's all of the places. It's literally all of the places by default. Unless the private owner says otherwise, then by default, it's literally all the places. Oh, well, that sounds a hell of a lot like I can't carry my firearm anywhere. So the big news on it. Now, we already covered this story a few months ago, but I felt it was worth discussing again because the date for oral arguments is coming up on January 20th. And here's the real interesting bit. There are 27 states, 26 states and the legislature of Arizona have joined an amicus brief in support of the plaintiff, right? They basically, they're not all totally permitless constitutional carry states, but basically all the permitless constitutional carry states got together and said, hey, Supreme Court, we support the overturning of these laws. We find these laws to be repugnant to the Constitution and deleterious to the pursuit of happiness, liberty, and prosperity for the American people. You may also find it entertaining to consider that all of the states that are passing laws of this nature right? I guarantee you have heard an elected politician from Hawaii, California, New York, New Jersey, right? Illinois, any of these states that are passing laws like this. I guarantee you have heard an elected politician from one of those states. No, I'm sorry, from each and every one of those states, without exception, make a claim, something to the effect that Donald Trump is Hitler, Donald Trump is a tyrant, an authoritarian, all Republicans are Nazis, all white people are evil Nazi terrorists, et cetera, et cetera. They've cried, they've cried about tyranny and authoritarianism and my Nazis, et cetera, et cetera. And these are the ones who are trying to do the Nazi-style disarmament of the people. Amusingly, they're also the pro-Palestinian guys, which means, well, that's not the, did not see that one coming. Let's not forget, part of the reason Kamala Harris lost the election in 2024 is because her party went full on river to the sea Holocaust, kill all the Jews for Palestine. Like that was their official party position. Like the Democrats were simultaneously screaming, "I'm with her," and globalize the Intifada. But no, we're Nazis. We're all just a bunch of evil white racists. That's the thing there. But yeah, these states, these so-called anti-fascist, anti-authoritarian governmental bodies are all into the gun grab. And they're attempting, despite the Bruen case, right, despite Heller, despite Gonzalez, they're still attempting to make it impossible to legally carry a firearm within their states. Now, I'm of two minds of this. Sergeant Major says, I'm comfortable never going back to Hawaii or any other blue state. I am too, generally. But just like I'm totally comfortable packing my family up and moving them out to the country and away from the infested hive of crime and villainy that is a place like Conyers, Georgia, or anywhere even approaching visibility of the Metro Atlantic, the Atlanta Metroplex, or any other major blue city. As much as I don't want to ever be there again, white flight is a problem. And I don't know what the correct solution is. Because at the end of the day, we have ceded territory to an enemy. And frankly, the only alternative to very reasonably and responsibly seeking safer, more accommodating and comfortable locales is something akin to engaging in active conflict. And I don't mean that to say that I'm suggesting or encouraging anybody to go and engage in active conflict in the in these metroplexes, but maybe the best thing for them is for white flight to simply leave and, just like the white blood cells abandoning an infected limb, let the cancer do its damage and amputate the limb. Just let it collapse and fall apart. Santa Steve says, start prosecuting voter fraud. I'm going to have to do a show talking about that in particular in the very near future, because I still have not addressed on air the 350,000 illegal ballots that were discovered in Georgia. thus proving that the 2020 election was in fact stolen. I haven't had a chance to address that one on air yet, but here's the last thing that makes this upcoming Supreme Court case very interesting is the Trump DOJ has not filed an amicus brief. Well, they have filed an amicus brief. Let me back that up a little bit. They haven't just filed an amicus brief. So before I say the next thing, let me clarify something for those of you who may or may not understand what that means. An amicus brief is when an unconnected third party enters a statement on behalf of one side or the other in a legal matter. So you got a case going before the Supreme Court. An amicus brief would be somebody like the Attorney General of another state stepping in, and they submit a written statement, an affidavit of sorts, a written statement saying, we support the argument of the plaintiff in this case, and here's why. And that might just be moral support. It might be material support. And more likely what it is we think their argument is correct, and here is an additional argument that supports it. Right? So that's what an amicus brief is. It is on paper. It is submitted for the court's consideration. It will be read and reviewed by the justices and taken into consideration as they make their rulings, right? As they issue their opinions. What the Trump DOJ has done is they have petitioned to actually join the oral arguments as a third party. This is actually pretty rare. So the Trump DOJ is actually sending lawyers in to argue on behalf of the repeal, or rather to argue for the repeal. Yeah, to argue for the repeal of laws like the Hawaii law making carry default illegal, which is clearly true, right? It is clearly the case that if you make it illegal to carry firearms anywhere, then you are in stark violation of the Second Amendment. I mean, that's not an argument that a person can win, right? A person could argue that the Second Amendment is immoral or unjust or unreasonable. Now, that's an argument that one could make, right? I would say they were wrong. I would say many, many things, but I would not say that that's an argument that can't be made. However, to argue that, given that the Second Amendment exists, a law which violates the Second Amendment is tolerable, that's just stupid. That's incoherent. That's not a thought that an intelligent person can have. That's like saying murder is illegal. Right? Given that murder is illegal, it's totally reasonable to have abortions even without cause. Right? Okay, that's not murder is illegal, but self-defense is homicide that is justifiable. Okay, yeah, you could get there. But murder is illegal, and because I think this guy's hat is stupid, I was perfectly justified to kill him. You can't get there from here, son. The right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Yes, that is only a restriction on the government. The argument that the Hawaii legislators are making is, well, we're not infringing on their rights. The private property owners are doing it. No. If it were the case that the private property owners were putting up signs that say, no weapons allowed on this property, that would be one thing. But in this case, what's happening is the government is abusing the idea that private property holders have the right and the authority to dispose of and use with that property as they will, and then subvert that through changing the default to being your property is assumed to be different to the law of the land, rather than assuming that your property acts in conformity with the law of the land unless you, the private property owner, have a lawful preference that the property be treated differently. So what Hawaii is doing is presupposing a fact not in evidence and using that to reverse the actual nature of the law. And the Trump DOJ is definitely sending somebody is sending somebody to join the oral argument and argue on behalf of the American citizens and the Second Amendment to protect your right to keep and bear arms in states where, let's be frank, guys, you just don't need to go there. Right. I mean, I am with the Sergeant Major on this one. I enjoyed my time in Hawaii. I enjoyed my time in California. I spent around 3 years in California and about 4 years in Hawaii. I enjoyed a lot. I enjoyed most of the time that I was there, and I wouldn't trade it for anything. But I had enough. I'm good. I don't need to go back there. Aaron Olson says, not even for a short visit, especially not for a short visit. Frankly, there's nothing either of those places can offer me that I cannot enjoy cheaper and more freely where I am today. Nothing of legitimate value. They don't even have restaurants that are good enough to beat out just going over and eating at Mom and Granddad's house. Oh, that's too easy. All right. And I am going to wrap this morning on, I got time for one DGU here. So, an official journal of the NRA. Oh, no. Okay, there we go. I was about to say, wait, this is all just advertisement for the NRA. No. An early morning carjacking attempt on Chicago's South Side ended poorly for alleged thieves as they were caught in the act by the armed and licensed vehicle owner. On Monday, December 8th, around 8:30 a.m., the 58-year-old owner of the vehicle heard his car alarm going off and stepped outside to investigate the noise. There, he saw the driver's side window of his white Honda Accord shattered, and two males were inside the vehicle. One of the males displayed a firearm, prompting the vehicle owner, who possessed an Illinois concealed carry license, to open fire. His shot struck one of the alleged car thieves, and the other fled from the scene, jumping into a waiting Dodge Caravan nearby. So they're out in the soccer ball. Dude jumped into the waiting Dodge Caravan nearby. So what you got is a couple of hood rats borrowed mama's soccer mommy minivan to go and steal a Honda Accord. They went to steal a Honda Accord. What oh, God. What are you doing, guys? Are you trying to stand up another branch of ISIS? Because that's what they drive. They drive the cheapest cars they can get their hands on. Why? Because we give them away like they're fucking candy over there. His shot struck one of the alleged thieves. Police were called to the scene by the vehicle's owner's girlfriend. And upon arrival, they found the wounded suspect suffering from gunshot wounds to his right arm and left knee. He was taken to an area hospital for treatment. That looks like a different article. So, okay. Gentlemen. Don't borrow your mama's minivan to go out and commit GTAs. Okay? And for that matter, the video game GTA, Grand Theft Auto. Okay. solid game, right? Solid game, but we've had to talk a few times on this show about the problem recreational felonies, and that's a big problem in the black community, where basically the music, the whole kind of cultural milieu is celebratory of recreational felonious activity. So we got to stop it, guys. Now, that said, I'd like to take a moment to celebrate a little bit of felonious activity through this Grand Theft Minnesota, and this is what we'll close on. Grand Theft Minnesota, ladies and gentlemen, I give you JD Delay, and this is solid gold.
This is lit.
They even got the crazy lefty out there. He got a Trump coin for knocking her ass down.
Tampon Tim, you're a retard.
Whoever did this,
You're a retard. That bit where he's in the limo and he's just running over the jumping Somalis in the street. Man, I was training some Marines on combat convoy operations one time, and I think I've told you guys this story before, but when we were doing it, I identified the drivers and, asked, what's your main battle weapon? And this one sharp lance corporal said, "Sir, my main battle weapon is the M4A9. Stop, son, stop. No, you're the driver. Your main battle weapon is that 4-ton fucking armored vehicle right there." And then we got into the simulator, right? Disney built us these big, beautiful virtual reality simulators for combat convoy operations. And those boys did not disappoint. We came across a crowd, like 100 armed Afghanis in the simulator. They basically just flooded out on the road in front of the convoy, all armed with RPGs and AK-47s. And that lead driver just hit the gas. And I wasn't in the simulator with him. I was in the ops and observation room with his sergeant major and his first sergeant and his commanders and his whole leadership team. They were, I thought they were about to start popping popcorn. They're all fist pumping and yeah. We had a blast with that one. So, all right, guys. Well, that's the show for this morning. I appreciate y'all stopping by. Y'all be safe out there this weekend. We love you. Tomorrow's Saturday for the deep dive. Tomorrow night at 2100. We love you, and we will see you tomorrow. Yeah, I want to stay on longer and do some longer shows, but I got to get this cough under control first, guys. Y'all be safe, guys.